Hello. So today I kind of wanted to talk about a struggle that a lot of people tend to deal with. I know it was a major thing in my life, and it all came down to not that I didn't want to be this way or that I didn't wasn't smart enough or anything. It was a lack of understanding, a lack of holding myself accountable. And it, for me, it was addiction and alcohol, and in a way, I guess the victim mindset that I held on to for a long time. The it kind of started with school and hanging out with friends, and I kind of always hung out with other kids that I guess in a way we're all trying to mask and figure out themselves and party, or yeah, everybody's different, so there's always a different reason. But more or less the kids that struggled, and alcohol was that. Alcohol, marijuana, um, in some cases pills, were all ways to get together and shut down all those thoughts of life and shut down all those insecurities and shut down everything that was holding you back, keeping you from being able to be whatever you were. Who knows at that time? I think that was probably the most confusing thing, is because everybody's still trying to figure out who they are in late middle school, early high school, that, they're willing to try just about anything. And without the support and without real understanding from the people around you, they may tell you you're wrong. They may tell you what you're doing bad. They may tell you that you need to change your life and all these things, but you're still not actually ever getting to the problem of why you are doing what you want to do. And I'm not gonna sit here and say that the that there aren't just kids that want to party, that there aren't just people that want to have fun, and they can go and do that and go about their life normally. And I'm more speaking to the ones that felt lost, felt like they had no support, felt like they didn't belong anywhere, and not having the tools or the people around you to help you get past that need for something else. And so you just think it's okay because it can hide under the, well, I'm just having fun. I'm just a kid. I'm just living my life, having a blast. I'm hanging out with friends. What's wrong with that? And it wasn't a big problem for me. I could not drink, smoke weed, not smoke weed, pills, whatever. It wasn't a big deal early on. It was just to have fun and just to interact with people, and I felt comfortable around those people who I normally might not feel comfortable around. I made a lot of friends, and most of the time I didn't remember any of them. Now, it became a real problem when I got to on my own. I remember there was a big moment in my life when I got my first apartment, and I was inviting people over. We were having fun, drinking, partying, and smoking, and the cops came. It happened a couple times, and they busted. There'd be 20 or 30 of us in a one-bedroom apartment, and we were having fun. We thought it was the best thing ever, but it was like the first time that real consequences were just laid out on the table of like, this can tear you apart. And for me, being the person who was renting the apartment, they gave me a lot of slack. And I was in the army at the time, And so thankfully, these cops had enough grace for me to kind of ride under the radar on it. They wrote a lot of tickets, they got a lot of people, but not me. And they let me go, but because I think they knew that I was learning and that I was just lost. So, thinking on that, I was like, man, that really, I appreciate that even still. And I didn't fully learn my lesson, but when it came to losing that apartment, which wasn't very long after, I was having to find a place to live and I was trying to figure it out and calling everybody I could and needing help moving my stuff and there, not a lot of people were answering. Not a lot of people were ready to help me at this point. I'd burned bridges. I didn't have any family that were willing to. We already had our falling outs, and it wasn't anything to do with drugs or alcohol. It was strictly other reasons, which I'll get into in another video. But little did I know that how many people would walk away, how many people would just disappear right in front of you. They were there every day, they were hanging out, they talked about being your friend, they said they were there for you, and then they just completely up and left. And at first I was like, why? Like, why do I have all of these friends, many friends that really weren't my friends? And it completely diluted my friends list from maybe 100+ people that I would hang out with in between here or there to a handful. Not even couldn't even count them on my hands, and the list wasn't even done dwindling. But I did get help, and I got help in different ways. In some ways, I was ungrateful for at the time, and I was just trying to figure it out. And I had a friend who took me in, and I lived with this friend and for a year and got through high school and graduated, and I was so happy to be done with it. And I was doing the split ops for the Army, so I was junior year I went to basic training, and then senior year I went to my AIT school to learn my job. And during all this, like, I was still doing the same things that I was used to doing, smoking, drinking, all that. Either way, I got through AIT and I came back and I was in a relationship, and I can tell it was kind of a rocky thing, and I was just holding on to whatever I could at that moment. I didn't have a lot of people, and I needed to get an apartment for myself, so everything ends up working out. I get an apartment, I get a job, working at a TJ Maxx warehouse, and I'm riding my bike every day back and forth to get some money and to be able to get a car, to be able to pay for my rent, to um, ended up finding out I was going to have a kid at the time. So 9 months from that point, I was going to have a son. And so everything was just like, oh, go, 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 go. Got responsibilities, got these things to take care of. And little did I know I was forgetting about myself again. I was so focused on everybody else that I was forgetting about me. And how hurt I was and how much I needed to heal from not the things that happened to me, but my perception of the things that happened to me. And that took a lot of years to even get to that point, to realize that, you know, I'm not the victim. I am not bad. And I don't need to give to everyone else before I give to myself, because I'm just giving from an empty plate. And the people that, stick around, and the ones that don't. Sometimes that's the best thing for you. But either way, I'm getting off topic. So I get the apartment, I get the car, I get the job. I'm building up money, and so now I'm trying to look for a better apartment, something me and my family can move in together, because I kind of had an apartment in a rough little area. I didn't really feel safe with them there. So that took about a year, and I missed a lot of the time with my son that as he was growing up as an infant, and I tried getting over there, but between working and having my own time to sleep and just anything in general, but and I played video games and stuff like that, and that's another part of the addiction. That's another thing that can go under the radar of like, this is okay now until it becomes a problem, it does when you just let it go and let it. You keep thinking what you're doing is okay, and you're not putting boundaries on yourself to where it can keep from harming you. And so I dug. At this time, I'm in my apartment. I'm digging into alcohol because I couldn't really do drugs at the time. I was in the Army and already been popped hot on a drug test, so I couldn't do any pills, couldn't do any marijuana. I could just drink. And so I was very limited on what I could do with that, but I was determined. Now I have a little money, now I have resources to get me to and from. I have my ID. I can drink. So I kind of jumped a little bit in this with years, but it kind of all blends together, anyways. Um, and so as I'm like drinking and playing video games and going to work, and I'm just trying to cover everything up, throw it all on top. I didn't know that later on that this would be such a big deal. I still felt good. I was still in good shape. Mentally, I had that brain fog. I don't know if you've ever experienced this in your life, but like a genuine like brain fog. It almost feels like everything's hazy. It's all happening. You're just barely perceiving it though. And so once we got an apartment that we can all live in, me, my ex-girlfriend, and my son, they this problem really really developed, because not only did me and the woman I was with at the time not have any ability to communicate with each other. We had no emotional maturity. We had our different upbringings, and in all reality, I was still in such a victim mindset myself. I'm not going to talk about anything about the other person. I just want to talk about me and how this affected me. But the victim mindset. I wanted everyone to feel bad for me. I wanted to get sympathy, get help, but not from a therapist, because I was too smart for that. I was too okay. And so the next 10 years of my life was just this gradual increase of, I'm going to drink alcohol on the weekends, and I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm going to come home, and then now I'm drinking when I come home from work. And the times varied, and I would hold myself accountable sometimes, and I'd back away, and then I'd go back into it even harder. And it started with beer, then it went to whiskey, because beer was, I had to drink 10 of them to feel anything versus a couple shots of whiskey and I was feeling good. And then those couple shots of whiskey turned into a half of a fifth and then a whole fifth and in a night. And then I would realize and I would back away and I would go to wine, and because wine was cheap and I could get a box of it for nothing. And so I started with that and I would drink a couple glasses and then it turned into half a box, whole box in a night. And I would be staying up for hours and hours and hours playing video games to the point to where I didn't get any sleep. So then I'm going to work the next day, I'm tired, and so this like spiral of negativity and this energy that was weighing me down to forget all the things that I was really just covering up with this, how I felt about my relationship and being honest with myself, how I felt about my past and not realizing at the time that it was there for me, not against me. And that's a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard thing to realize that you were hurt to build you. And I was far from learning that until into my 30s. So I had the money. I was making good money at the time. It wasn't extravagant, but enough to pay my bills, enough to pay for my car, have everything that a family could need. Even was looking at buying a home, ended up buying that home. Had a VA loan for that, which was great. So like life was still progressing a little bit, but I still always had this feeling that like what I was doing wasn't right for me, or the people that I was around when it came to work and in my relationship just wasn't right for me. And a lot of that wasn't them, it was me. And not knowing that, everybody has their problems and everybody has their thing, but when it comes down to it, I am the sole one responsible for how I look at the world and how I interact with the world, and a lack of skills and strength and confidence and understanding is on me. So, I this process went on for close to 10 years, if not a little more. And I'd gotten up to 285 pounds, and I had got laid off from work when COVID hit back in 2020. And that was a spiral and a half because I had 9 months of, I was getting paid for getting laid off, didn't have to do anything, all my bills were paid, and just sat back and sat in the house and drank and ate food and played video games and to ridiculous times at night, and if not all night. And I didn't know at the time I was digging that hole and I was getting close to the bottom. Had no clue at all. All I knew is that if I seen a picture of myself at the time, I felt gross. I felt terrible about myself. I had healed practically nothing, and I was just full sending and hating myself, hating the way I looked, hating my situation, hating that life felt like there was no end to it. I was just gonna be that type of person to work a job, have some things, and die one day. And I'm like, why don't I do it now? Why do I want to wait? And so, I had my son, so thankfully he was there because he kept, that knowing he was there kept me alive quite a few times. And I don't think I ever really would have done it, but man, did those thoughts cross my mind over and over and over again. So I I woke up one night and I had this vibrating in the back of my neck, up and down my spine, and I'm like, it felt like somebody was holding one of those massage guns onto the back of my neck while I was sleeping. And I'm like, I just drank a whole bunch, and I started Googling things. Google's the Google doctor, and the amount of things that I heard, like seen, and were being led to believe could be the case were from you're perfectly fine to you're gonna die tomorrow. So my body's hurting. I'm at the worst shape of my life. My legs are falling asleep, even just sitting down on the couch. I have to keep them propped up so the blood will flow. I'm feeling like I'm like on the verge of diabetes and maybe cardiac arrest, who knows. And I'm like, I have to change. I think one of the big ones was I took pictures for Christmas pictures, and I looked like a weather balloon. I'm like, okay, I'm used to being like under 200 pounds, complete muscle, and running and exercising and all these things that made me feel good. They made me feel strong. And so I knew I could get back to what I was at that time. And so, but I didn't really want to work out. I didn't really, I think I ended up getting, I tried working out and I got hurt a little bit, and I'm like, I'm gonna pull away from that. So what I did was I started fasting, started learning a lot about it, and was really interested in it. I'm like, so I could lose everything by just taking away, not eating. As dreadful as that sounded, I was kind of already okay with that because I'd already had my spouts of back and forth trying to get healthy. And what I would do is I would just completely cut out all bad foods, and I would eat whole foods, but I would eat no flavors, no anything. I would just eat a cucumber or a salad with no dressing, chicken with no seasoning on it, rice with nothing in it. And so I'd had those, and so I was kind of already breaking away from the need to have these delicious meals. I still wanted them. I still wanted pizza. Um, but after that neck vibrating, I was like, this is the time to change. I cannot. I think I'm gonna die. And I still had that picture from Christmas where I look like a weather balloon, and so these two played together to me as the catalyst to push me past this cycle of constantly thinking it's okay to drink and just covering things up. And a friend of mine had gotten me some vape pens for THC, and so I was like, okay, I'll do that because I know I can quit that. I'm not going to have an addictive personality to that. I mean, you can, and it happens, but it's not going to be a physical, sickly reaction when I do quit. And I would never buy it like from other people on the street or anything like that. So this was a friend from out of town gave me a few, like, here you go. And this is what I used. I sat there and I used this THC pen to, when I felt that urge, I would do that. And it came up every single night, every day after work. When I wanted to play video games, I'm zoning out. I'm forgetting everything. I don't feel anything anymore. But the thing about that is that THC tended to make me think a little bit more, and it makes me expand in a kind of judgmental against myself and how I'm reacting in life. And that's what I needed. I needed that. So I go ahead and that's my new addiction. That's my new process. I'm doing that, and then I'm like getting the idea that I want to pick up going out and building a garden in my backyard and walking around the neighborhood and getting my son and me both in shape. And this is my son's at the time, was he like 11? So, he's like me, we can build some weight on us. So, he's excited to get out there and get healthy and get some exercise because he needs it. He's a kid. And so we're running, doing our thing, getting back in shape. And I didn't realize, like, at this time, how much alcohol had played a role in holding me down, because I'd started feeling that little glimmer of hope again. And I had been on and off and on and off thinking about it, like wanting to quit, wanting to quit, wanting to quit, but I just never could. But this first time that I spent, I had a few months without it, my life completely changed. And from a skin condition that I had, on my stomach, under my arms, on my back, like it was dry, it looked like eczema, and I didn't feel like I could take my shirt off ever at a pool or wear a muscle shirt or anything. So, and it was always irritating me. I'd come out of the shower, be red, puffed up, and hurting, itchy. And I dealt with that from early 20s to 30 until 2020. And when I quit drinking whiskey every day, Jameson whiskey, that was my thing. I would drink a fifth of that as much as I could. I would constantly be buying bottles at $30 a bottle, which was extremely expensive to do almost every day. Sometimes I'd drink half and then the other half the next day, and then go get another bottle and do the same thing. And that was kind of my process. Might still sneak in a box of wine. And but as I healed, I was like I was learning to trust myself a little bit again. And I still wasn't doing everything right, but I was taking away that thing that was killing me. That skin condition completely cleared up. The intermittent fasting and kind of a keto diet cleared my mind up. I literally felt like I was running on jet engine fuel at the time, and I'm clear, I'm focused, getting everything done. I was motivated, and it was a good feeling to have. So much that at that point I knew I was done. I wasn't ever gonna have to go back to alcohol because it was doing nothing but weighing me down, killing my financial situation, and hurting me to the point to where I didn't want to be here anymore. And I hate, honestly, how much, I don't hate it, but there's a lot of emotions to deal with once you've gotten past that situation that can really force you back into it. And a big one for me was regret. Was regret that I did it to myself. Was regret that I have to do all this work to get away from it, and that how much damage did I do to myself? And I hoped it wasn't that much. How much did I hurt my kid emotionally, and even my partner at the time? How much did I hurt these people? And they didn't deserve that. And no matter what disagreements is, or what emotionally, what stage we were at, and how we believed, that's irrelevant. But the regret, the feeling that you're just not, like, you're a piece of shit for doing what you did, and now you have to deal with it because I smoke weed and I think about it more. So now I'm stuck in this process of, well, what do I do with this? And I had to start learning that healing was the thing, that it was possible for me to heal, for me to change, for me to grow, and learn new techniques to go through life that had nothing to do with substances take away from instead of adding. You know, I'll go on another little short tangent. Right after that, I was still in that process of wanting to add, so I went on this kick of vitamins. I probably had 50 vitamins, 50 plus vitamins in a cabinet that I was just taking every single day and trying to like boost my system up. I thought I was going to be Hercules at after a week of taking these vitamins, and I'd go on Amazon, see another set, and okay, that's good. I'd see on YouTube like, oh, try out this new thing. It's great for you. And I fell for it, and I would just keep adding on, adding on, adding on. And one day I'm like, I need to take away. I need to. What are all. I don't need things to make me feel any better. They never did. Doesn't matter how many, how much stuff I have, the cars, house, items sitting around, cluttering up the place. None of that actually helped me. If anything, it made it worse because now I have responsibilities. Now I have things to care for. Now I have no room to put anything because I don't have any storage space. And so I was like, I got to get rid of. I have to change this part of myself. I have to get rid of the regret. I have to get rid of items. I have to clean up my home. I have to fix things that were broken that I just wasn't paying attention to. I had to start becoming proactive, and it took a while. It took a long while to really do that 180. And in some ways, it was, you can do that 180, and now you go too far with it, and you're trying to oppress everyone with all the knowledge that you know, and help everybody because you healed. And that's its own video. That's its own thing. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of like the process that I went through, and it might be long and kind of not really understandable, but honestly, that was what it was for me. It was hard to understand. It was hard to keep track in your head and even know what day it was, and so to finally get to that healing part where I'm on top of it, I'm on top of the world. I love life. I want to live. Is such a beautiful thing, and it's something that everybody that goes through addiction should be able to experience. And I know it's hard. I really do. I know it's hard that you feel like this is the only thing that can fix you in the moment, and every time you try to pull away from it, that you walk through that door and you want to close it behind you, but on the other side of that door was that one thing you're used to. It was the one thing that you remember and it made you feel good. And on the other side of the door and the light is the things that are going to hurt, the things that you're going to have to remember and realize and apologize for. So it doesn't look that enticing to go in there and shut that door on the old life, the darkness of your past. And I get that. And you're not ready until you're ready. You're never gonna be. You're gonna try. You might fail. You may succeed. And that's the beautiful part about it, is that you might succeed. And on the other side of finally conquering that part of yourself that you don't appreciate, but is what's keeping you going, it's just such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful thing to just empower yourself to know that you can. And then you get to go around and talk to other people who have or haven't. And maybe tell them a little bit about your story. Don't try to force them to believe what you're believing or know what you know, but just tell them a little bit about how you did it. And I think some of my journey was that I knew the whole time, and I didn't want to hurt the people around me. And looking at that actually really, really shifted it for me, because I couldn't continue adding to my list of things to apologize for, and that laundry that I was carrying with me, because it was getting so, so heavy. And I was tired of feeling like I didn't matter, and that I hated myself, and so all these things added up. But I couldn't have done it for anybody else. I had to love myself, and I had to love the version of me that messed up, and that took a lot of time too. So, I could look at the time where it was 2020 COVID, and I'm sitting there getting all this weight on me, and I'm hating my life, but I'm making the best of it with alcohol and video games, and I'm hurting the people around me. And I can look at that as like, oh well, that sucks, and I was a terrible person, and I was hurting everybody. But I'm thankful for that moment, because now, once I've walked through that door and I know that I can change with awareness, with the knowledge that I have, I will never have to go back down that route again, ever. There is no looking back and saying, maybe that's still a good idea. Maybe I can try it again. Maybe I can't look at alcohol without, like, I don't want to touch it. And I may drink one here or there, maybe two. But honestly, I'll feel like crap the next day, even off of two Smirnoff ices. Um, but that feeling that I have to have it, that if I don't do it, that I'm gonna that anxiety's gonna build and I'm gonna fall apart, um, is no longer there. And it was through awareness, love for myself, that I had to trick myself into loving myself at first, and just letting it go, letting it gradually build on top of itself, finding reasons why I could love myself. And as I was healing and growing and becoming stronger again and healthier, I was giving myself reasons to love myself again. So, out of everything here, my whole spiel of addiction and all that, if there's anything I want you to know, it's one thing: is that loving yourself is the only thing that can pull you away from the dark spots in your life. You're the only one you have. And it may be a cliche saying, but save your own life. Save that little boy in you or little girl in you that doesn't understand why you're doing what you're doing, but knows you're hurting yourself and deserves love, so that you can live your life. And you may make some major changes and realize that you need to drop a lot of this and pick up a lot of that. But as long as you're trying to find yourself, you'll be happy. You'll find happiness. You'll grow. You'll change. And it's a beautiful thing. And I hope that whoever's listening to this can find that in themselves and know that I love you. And I appreciate you if you spent this much time actually just listening to me rant about my addictions and my struggle. So thank you. Have a great night.